At this point, it feels like everyone on earth has weighed in on Caitlin Clark's Time interview and the white privilege remarks. Obviously, I've touched on what the Mystics owner had to say, which was completely ridiculous. And I'm not sure there's that much more to say on the topic. But when a teammate, or in this case, a former teammate, says something, I do think it is worth covering because that is a different perspective than you're going to get from political pundits and commentators and all the other people that have been blowing hot air for the last several days about what Caitlin Clark had to say. By the way, Caitlin seems completely unbothered. She was at the Butler game with Tyrese Halliburton. As she said, she blocks out the noise. I believe her that she is able to block out the noise, but there has been a lot of noise, which makes people think they need to have their opinions heard. And some people in the opinion business have obviously made their opinions heard over and over. But Temi Fagbenle has perspective, being a player in the league and obviously a teammate of Caitlin Clark's. Here is what Temi had to say in a thread that she posted. Let me make this clear. Cece can speak about having white privilege without hating herself. Cece can acknowledge the reality of race disparities without pandering to any group. Cece can celebrate the giants who have come before her without diminishing her own historic accomplishments. I think most people know this. It's just a select group trying to twist things. The U.S.'s race issue is so ingrained that I believe a majority of them don't even think they're twisting anything. The immediate response to anyone talking about how race affects anything is denial. This is a great opportunity for some respectful conversations about race in the U.S. However, the combos will only be beneficial if there are no racist or prejudiced people involved. We must first converse to understand, not to be right. Next step is working together to make a change. I'm also not naive by any means, LOL. It's been hundreds of years of this BS. Ain't no quick fix. But if the majority of people band together working towards the same goal, the racist and prejudiced stragglers will be left behind and forced to adapt, just like in team sports. So this is Temi attempting to have Caitlin Clark's back, and Caitlin Clark should not apologize for being white, should not hate herself, and being white has, in my opinion, nothing to do with her success on the basketball court, or very, very, very little to do. Nothing to do with her success on the basketball court, and is a small piece of seasoning on her popularity, a garnish on her popularity, if you will. She got where she is because of her abilities on the basketball court, and I will never back off that position. I think it's ridiculous to think otherwise, to be honest with you, especially when basketball and sports are a meritocracy. And, when you go out on court, somebody can play, they can play. Now, the other aspects of this, I think the biggest issue in the blowback is simply that those two words were used. And she didn't actually use them in conjunction, white privilege, but she said, as a white person, there is a privilege. I believe Caitlin was simply trying to convey, one, that she respects her peers and those that came before her, which is a great message. And two, that, yeah, maybe she did get a fan base activated that wasn't going to be following the WNBA before because of the curiosity factor about this white girl from Iowa. That's what I think she was trying to convey, not start a firestorm and a controversy. Okay. As far as, the deeper context here of what Temi is saying and race relations in America, I mean, look, it is true that race in America has been Chris Rock did a bit about it on SNL talking about some of that last night too, and where the presidents, having pregnant slaves. I mean, there's terrible things, there's atrocities. People couldn't, besides slavery, not drinking from the same water fountain, not in the same bus, not in the same school. Awful, terrible, inhumane things. Now, it's been a long time since then, but some of these things permeate and stick and are institutionalized. Now, I do think in recent years, there has been plenty of discussion, if not too much discussion, around race, in a sense where, you see some, I think George Floyd in that was a big turning point. And because no one with human heart and empathy could see that happen and not feel bad for their fellow human being. And around that time, it was a real hot button issue. But I think since then, bad actors, or misguided at least, have taken that and hijacked it and then make every conversation about race, even when it doesn't apply at all. And I think in the instance of Caitlin Clark and the WNBA, it has become too prevalent a topic because I've never heard it brought up this much in sports before, right? Like, and at the same time, it's not as if this whole idea that the WNBA is a black league, a black league, a black league, it's not as if there haven't been great white players in the WNBA. For whatever reason, unlike the NBA, where there haven't been that many great white American players. I mean, Larry Bird is the only one I can really think of. Kevin McHale, you got to go back then. I mean, most of the great white players are European. But in the WNBA, a high percentage of the white players have been elite, or of the elite players have been white, I guess I should say. And even if you look today, I mean, Diana Taurasi, obviously not black, Sabrina Ionescu, Brianna Stewart, so on and so forth, Kelsey Plum, so on and so forth. So it's not as if, there haven't been white players in the WNBA before who have been successful. There's never been anybody as popular as Caitlin Clark. So I think you have to look at that uniquely and remove the lowest common denominator analysis that she's white, so she's popular, right? Like, again, that can be part of the equation, but as the basis and the foundation. Now, I understand it's probably true too that black women were not, that companies weren't just looking and saying, oh, I'm identifying this player as a star and promoting them. And I do think this is a benefit of what's taken place is a lot of the other women in the league are going to get more looks in that regard, more endorsements in that regard. Now, was it purely racism? Again, you have to be more nuanced with the words you use and the context in which you use. So bottom line is everybody's entitled to their opinion, and we can have a real dialogue and treat each other with respect and unpack the issues without just doing a shouting match. Because what has really happened here, and I think I'll credit Dave Portnoy, who basically has echoed what I've said. You have people looking for engagement to feed their feeds. So the carnival barkers on each side of this have hijacked the issue due to Caitlin Clark's popularity and the fact she hasn't been in the news cycle lately. And you have the one side who's, thank you, this is what she needed to say, recognize the white privilege law. And the other side is, oh, she bent the knee and she's pandering and I'm no longer a fan. And none of that's going to manifest itself on the basketball court when the WNBA season tips off again. I'm sure we'll see more nonsense. I mean, that's been proven. That's a factual thing now. But that's really my honest read on the situation. And so much of this is noise about nothing that we'll never talk about again once the next thing emerges. But I thought it was at least worth sharing Temi Fagbenle's thoughts.